Hey. So I got bored at 4 a.m. and I decided to make a very simple homebrew system. And this is what the main character sheet actually looks like. It's called Kuus. I couldn't think of a name, so I just looked up a word for six in different languages, and this is the Estonian word, and I think it looks nice. It's called six because it's all just d6s. That's the only die you need. So yeah, it has 5 basic stats, 3 of them for skills, mind, body, soul, 2 of them for combat stuff, attack and defense. Now, body deals with stuff like, moving around and lifting things and fighting, that sort of deal. Mind is more like, knowledge and experience. Soul is like more magic and mystical things, more emotional things. Now, to generate that at first level, all of them are just 2 dice or 2d6. And to generate these two, they're both starting out at 1d. Now, these skills do work a little interesting. Like, if you're trying to persuade someone, that could go under any one of these, really. Like, if you're trying to explain to someone logically, right? You're trying to give someone a logical reason. Let's do this plan for this, and this reason. That's appealing to logic, so that would go under mine. If you're kind of trying to use charisma or emotions, that would go under soul. If you're trying to convince someone with more seductive techniques, that would go under body. So yeah, it always starts at 2 dice for these. The maximum any of these stats can go is 3 dice. And so let's say you're trying to climb something, that would go under body. The DM would be like, oh, it's a pretty easy thing, so yeah, climbing a tree, that's just roll 3. So at first level, you would roll 2 dice, and if you make a 3 or higher, boom, you're climbing that tree. And snake eyes in that case, or just 2, would be a fumble. So yeah, the most basic difficulty is don't fumble, and you're good. If I were doing this, if I were DMing, I would be like, oh, this difficulty is 3, and this is 6, and 9, and 12, and work your way up into increments of 3, all the way to 18. Yeah, so that's basically how skills work. Now, the way that spells work is you would just roll soul, right? And you tell the DM what you want to do. It's like, oh, I cast Fireball. They're like, oh, okay, Fireball is pretty easy. I'll give it a 6 to successfully cast it. They're like, yeah. So if you roll a total 6, then yeah, you casted a Fireball. Now, you get 6 free spells every level. So as long as you're playing at first level, you get 6 spells to use. You can use spells even if you run out, but you start taking damage if you go beyond your natural limit. And we'll get into damage in a second. Now, when you are leveling up, you will just choose one of these 5 stats and add 1 dice to it. So let's say you like mind. Okay, you're level 2, so you increase your mind, and also your max spells will go up. And if you have everything, then 48 is your max, and that brings you to level 8. Hopefully that makes sense. So you might notice this damage thing. This is probably the most complicated part of the system, and I created it a long time ago. I've modified it slightly, but let me show you. So yeah, when you're damaging someone, you roll 1d6, and look at this table. So I'll tell you what these mean. This means unharmed, slightly harmed, moderately harmed, critically harmed, and dead. So these aren't actual hit points, it's just kind of relative descriptions of how much pain you're in. Now, if you are moderately damaged, you lose 1 die to your defense. So if you have 2 dice for defense, well, you're only going to use 1 die now. But if you normally have 1, you're not going to lose anything because I can't have you roll 0d6. This benefits low-level players, and you sort of lose that advantage as you go up, which I think is nice. Now, if you're critically damaged, you will lose 2 defense dies and 1 attack die if that is relevant. Keep in mind, you always have to have a minimum of 1 die. Now, the reason these are not numerical HP bonuses is because of this. The way damage stacks does not work mathematically. So assuming this is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then 1 plus 1 does equal 2, but 1 plus 2 equals 2. Yeah, so most of these, if you were treating them as numbers, wouldn't actually be proper equations. Hopefully I explained that, but whatever. Here's how combat works. So the attacker will roll their attack, which could be 1 die, 2 die, or 3 die. The defender will roll their defense, which whoever rolls highest wins. So if the defender rolls highest, then that attack would miss. If the attacker rolls highest, then the attack would succeed. If there is a tie, it means the attack fails. If the attack does succeed, consult this, and you're good to go. Keep in mind, though, if you're wearing any amount of armor, just any amount, you will just -1. So let's say you roll a 2. Well, if you're wearing armor, you actually roll a 1, and you're fine. If you have an epic weapon, you'll add a 1 to the roll. An epic weapon could be like just a very large weapon, or a very powerful weapon, or a magic weapon, or a family heirloom, an ancient relic. Something like that, it's DM discretion. For attack order and initiative, just go around the table. So it's like, oh, Jim goes, and then Bill, and then Jessica, and then Jill, and then back around. It keeps it simple. We don't need to get bogged up in details. Now magic, yeah, you confer with the DM the spell you want. DM will give you a difficulty, then you roll it. If you hit 0 spells, you can still use a spell, but you will take a slight amount of damage every time. So there's only so much spells you can push past your limit before your body just can't even handle that amount of arcana. Yeah, skills start at 2 die, combat skills start at 1 die. Leveling up, you add 1 die to a stat. So you're like, oh, add it to mind. Next level you do defense. Next level you do body. I explained that already. Yeah, fumble is snake eyes. So if your dice come out as all 1s, that's a fumble. Basically, it's just a major fail. Yeah, so that is the basic system of things. I would say the system is really good for a DM like me who has a lot of character-focused things, but not a lot of combat-focused events in my sessions. And because it is very easy to die, that kind of disincentivizes combat, and it's really good for me. Obviously, it is very simple, and I wouldn't run a campaign like this, but if it's just you and some friends, you got a little time, you're a little bored, well, you could just get a couple d6s and play Kuus. Keep in mind, you don't have to print out this character sheet at all. It's so very simple, you could just get paper and a pen, you know, oh, my name is this, level's this, these are my spells, this is my damage, these are my stats, and that's it. Now, of course, you might have to just confer with this, that's the only annoying thing, but, you know, if you have access to this table, it's not hard to look. Oh, another small thing I added out of boredom was color coding. Each of these. There was no reason for me to do that, but I thought it was fun. So that's Kuus. Hopefully you understand how the system works and I didn't explain things badly. Either way, I should probably go to bed. Alright, see you around Quest Club.